Never a doubt, Syracuse is hanging on to Eddie Lampkin.
You are Locked On Syracuse, your daily podcast on the Syracuse Orange. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome into Locked On Syracuse. I'm Jackson Holzer, and thank you for making us your first listen of every single day on the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day, and we're free and available wherever you get your podcasts. And on today's mini episode, Eddie Lampkin is staying with Syracuse basketball. And as I said off the top, there was never a doubt in my mind Eddie Lampkin was staying with Syracuse basketball. All right, I'm lying. Just kidding. I did not really doubt, but there was concern with Eddie Lampkin staying with Syracuse. Sorry, not being fully truthful there. But hey, you know what? He is staying with Syracuse basketball. I did a podcast yesterday about the timeline of events, frequently asked questions regarding the situation. And then I, in the third segment, was like, you know what? What happens if he does leave? What happens if the meeting doesn't go well? The meeting went well. So in case you don't know, and you need a refresher on what the meeting is, Eddie Lampkin flew into Syracuse on Wednesday night, and he met with Syracuse coaches on Thursday to try to, quote, shore up the commitment. They were going to come together and try to keep Eddie Lampkin in Syracuse. And it seemed like yesterday it was going to be either yes, he's staying, or no, he's not staying. I did also talk about how I thought it was a good sign, the fact that he was coming to Syracuse. Meetings can obviously be held virtually nowadays, so the fact that he was coming to Syracuse is a good sign. I mean, why would you fly to a place and then say to them in person that you're not going to be attending? I don't know. But regardless, Eddie Lampkin met with the Syracuse coaching staff yesterday, and they shored up the recruitment. And Eddie Lampkin last season at Colorado, he averaged 10 points and 7 rebounds per game. He's projected to be the starting center for next season for Syracuse basketball. He told Syracuse.com in an article this morning that, quote, nothing has changed. And he was speaking on his commitment to Syracuse, that nothing has changed. And, well, nothing did technically change. It's not like Eddie Lampkin committed elsewhere and then committed back to Syracuse, or he decommitted and everything like that. No, he didn't. He was always committed to Syracuse. But what I will say is that that quote is kind of vague and it's kind of misleading, because it seemed like it's fair to assume that something did happen, and that there was something going on behind the scenes that nobody really knew about, except for probably a very few amount of people. Eddie Lampkin scrubs everything Syracuse related off his social media. People start panicking. Rumors start spreading. I don't know which rumors were true and which ones were not true, but something obviously happened. Something. I don't know what it was, but regardless, the main takeaway is that Eddie Lampkin met with the Syracuse coaching staff, and he told them, I'm staying committed to Syracuse, which is really, really good news for the Orange, because they desperately needed to keep him. Now, coming up, I'm going to talk about the impact of Eddie Lampkin staying with Syracuse. The NBA playoffs are in full swing, and Gametime is what you should use to buy tickets. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee, Gametime takes the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets. Prices on the Gametime app actually go down the closer it gets to the tip-off, and I'm sorry to the New York Knicks fans out there, but if you're still interested in going to an NBA Eastern or Western Conference Finals game, use Gametime. And to be honest with you, you probably would have more luck with the Western Conference Finals, with that being a longer series, because it seems like the Celtics are going to take care of the Pacers pretty easily. But anyways, my favorite part is I get to see the view from my seat before I buy. Get a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you purchase. Take the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCollege, LOCKEDONCOLLEGE, for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Welcome back, everyone, into Locked On Syracuse. I'm Jackson Holzer, and Eddie Lampkin is staying with the Orange. We talked about kind of a brief summary of the timeline of events, but if you're looking for a summary of the timeline of events, you should check out yesterday's podcast where I went all through it and frequently asked questions regarding it. But now there's been an update. Eddie Lampkin is staying with Syracuse. As far as the impact, there are three main takeaways as far as Eddie Lampkin staying with Syracuse. The first one is pretty obvious. Syracuse has its starting center officially for next season. Eddie Lampkin, when he committed to Syracuse in early April, I said, and most people have echoed the same thing, he's not really an all ACC caliber big man. Like, I'd be surprised if he made it that high. But he is someone who averaged 10 points and 7 rebounds per game last year at Colorado, which is a Power 5 school. He had a great NCAA tournament. He's a starting caliber big man that can play 25 to 30 minutes a night, and Syracuse desperately needed that. They got Eddie Lampkin on April 2nd, I believe, and now they have hung on to Lampkin, so they have their starting center. That's the first takeaway here. The second takeaway is kind of building off of that. Syracuse doesn't need to target a starting center in the transfer portal because they have Eddie Lampkin. This is important because there's basically no centers left in the portal. There is not a single center remaining that is in the top 400 overall in the transfer portal if you use On3 industry rankings. Okay, and I know rankings aren't everything, but the point is, a lot of the starting caliber big man, not a lot of, I would say most of the starting caliber big man are gone. Most of the starting centers are gone. They have found new homes. So the fact that Eddie Lampkin stays with Syracuse is massive because had he decommitted, I don't know what they would have done. It would have been very hard to find a center. They might have to go the route of trying to find someone who would decommit from another school and come to Syracuse now that the minutes would be available. But that's not a game that you really want to play. It's not easy to say, leave the school that you just committed to, right? So now they don't need to do that. They can target instead a third string option like I've been talking about on this podcast, just a third string depth option that can play the Peter Carey, Munir Himo role, just to have a body there just in case something happens to Eddie Lampkin or Naheem McLeod. Okay, so that's the second takeaway. Syracuse doesn't need to target a starting center in the portal anymore. They got one in Eddie Lampkin, right? The third takeaway here is that Syracuse can now focus its attention on grabbing other players in the transfer portal. They don't need to try to keep Lampkin in the fold. They got him back. He's here. We're good. Everything's all set, right? So now they can focus their attention on the other stuff that they need, like getting another wing player. I know that Georgia State shooting guard Lucas Taylor, who I talked about on the podcast a couple of days ago, that seems to have legs to it. Mike McAllister published an article recently, and it seems like they're trying to work out a visit with Lucas Taylor. So he could be a good fit as a backup shooting guard for this team. But the point being is that with Eddie Lampkin staying and knowing that he is staying, you don't need to worry about it anymore. You can go out and take care of whatever other business, right? You still have 3 open scholarships remaining. You don't need a fourth now. With Eddie Lampkin staying, there's not a fourth. There's still 3 remaining. So Eddie Lampkin is staying with Syracuse. It's winner take all time in the NBA and NHL, and FanDuel is giving you a shot to bring home a big win of your own. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 to bet on spreads, money lines, player props, and more. And Syracuse football fans, for those that are optimistic and have the Orange winning 10 games, well, this one's for you. Plus 4,500 to win the ACC. All you got to do is visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make every playoff shot count. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Hello, everyone, and welcome back into Locked On Syracuse. I'm Jackson Holzer. We went over Eddie Lampkin staying with the Orange. We talked about the impact of it, and now just a couple of announcements before I sign off here. First of all, I know it's Friday. Poll Friday, because of this, is now being moved to Poll Saturday. Not permanent, but I don't want to release two videos on the same day when I don't really have to. So Poll Friday will now be released on Saturday. I'll give you a time when I have it. The question for the week was, who should be the priority 2025 recruit for Syracuse basketball? Tons of interesting options I listed, and of course other. So you guys voted on that, and I'll go over that on Saturday now. And also, I might do a mini podcast like this one for the recent running back commit for Syracuse football, and that is Will Nixon transferring from Washington. He is the son of Jeff Nixon, the offensive coordinator and running backs coach at Syracuse. So might do it, might not. It could be a segment in a podcast coming up, but it's just an idea that I have. If you want to see it, leave a comment below. But anyways, that is it for this mini edition of the Locked On Syracuse podcast. Everyone, take care.